Asantemaso TV, Yasomo Sompa.
Abugrabo Azoka thus became the first Kusasi Bokunaba and head of the Kusasi area. The records of the committee reveals that they accepted evidence adduced by him that his father and grandfather owned most of the land that constitutes present-day Bawku Township. In the analysis of the committee, the Kusasis were the original inhabitants of the Kusasi area. The Mamprusis had invaded the area and began to install princes from Narugu to rule over the Kusasis. They suspected that the arrival of the Europeans might have added the establishment of Mamprugu hegemony in the area. At the time of the work of the committee, the Mamprusi who appeared before the committee insisted that the land in the Kusasi area belonged to the Nairi. SD Opoku Afari and others versus Jeremiah Mamprusi Civil Appeal number 80 in the year 1958. The Mamprusi deposed chief sought an order of certiorari in the divisional court to quash the proceedings and report of the Afari Committee and the Governor General's decision that Abugrago Azoka has been customarily elected and installed the chief of Bawku. This decision of the Governor General was contained in the Gazette publication notification. Essentially, the Mamprusis argued that the terms of reference of the committee was to determine if Abugrago Azoka has been validly selected as chief of the Kusasi area. But the Governor General's Gazette notification had decided that Abugrago Azoka has been customarily elected and installed the chief of Bawku. The divisional court judge concluded that the Governor General's decision with or equivalent to a decision the judge quashed the proceedings by the decision appealed same, and the Court of Appeal presided by Chief Justice Akukosa disagreed with the judge sitting in the divisional court. The Court of Appeal concluded that once the legally recognized as the chief of Kusasi area, then his opinion that the chief of Bawku is not identical with the chief of Kusasi area is untenable, since terms chief of Bawku and chief of Kusasi area are interchangeable titles and not what the late judge suggested as mutually exclusive. The Court of Appeal therefore allowed the appeal and restored the Governor General Listowell's decision that Abugrago Azoka has been validly elected and installed chief of Bawku. The Governor General was a representative of Queen Elizabeth, who was then the Queen of England and exercised dominion over Ghana at that time. And this was on the 21st of October 1958. The Court of Appeal then Ghana. Following the decision of the Court of Appeal, the Governor General made an order prohibiting Jeremiah Village of Bawku. This was contained in the Jeremiah Mamprusi Prohibition Order 1959, LN 225, Legend 9 by Section 3, as amended by the Chiefs Recognition Amendment Act 1959, provided that it shall be lawful where the Governor General deems it to be in the public interest by order to direct that any person named in the order shall not exercise or purport to exercise the functions of a chief, and by the same or any other order to direct that such person shall not reside within a on the 5th of December 1966, NLC, the Lieutenant General J. Ankra, who had become chairman of the National Liberation Council, which had replaced the government of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah following a military coup on the 28th of February 1966, 24th of February 1966, promulgated the Chieftaincy Amendment Decree 1966. NLC Decree 112, according to its terms, provided that the recognition of the member of the National Liberation Council responsible for chieftaincy matters shall, for the purposes of Section 1 of the Chieftaincy Act 1961, Act 81, be deemed to have been withdrawn from the person named in column 1 of the second schedule of this decree as chief. Any persons made under Section 4 of the Chieftaincy Act 1961, Act 81, from purporting to exercise the functions of a chief, and all other persons shall be deemed to be required by such an instrument not to treat him as a chief. And accordingly, any person who contravenes any such prohibition or requirement shall be guilty of an offense under the said Section 4. Any person for any such person as is referred to in column 1 of that schedule was recognized as chief for that place shall, if he is alive at the commencement of this, be deemed with this decree to be restored to the stool, who have been recognized as chief by the member of the National Liberation Council responsible for chieftaincy matters for the purposes of Section 1 of the Chieftaincy Act 1961. The second schedule had in page 7 of the decree a list of names of chiefs from whom recognition is to be withdrawn. And the places at which they acted as chiefs in the upper region. They included Ayamba, Bugari, Timpani, Atu, Ayadu, Bila, Asa, Zabila, Abugria, Puzida, Binduri, Akagane, Kugri, Abu Balila Awuni, Zongori, Abaricha Kusasi, Senebaga, Abugri Abango Binaba, Dinko Dant, Warikumbo, Azinab Ayebo Teshi, Anena Akazuza, Pusiga, Adoleba Kulungugu, Awini Atule Bugri, Aburago Azoka Bawku. He appointed to the 15 other divisions listed above were also deposed. NLC Decree 112 further provided in the section that one of the instruments listed, the NLC Decree thereby placed the Nairi as the one entitled to enskin the chief of Bawku. Given that Mamprusi as the Bawku Naba, the High Court and the National House of Chiefs affirmation of NLC Decree 112. The Kusasi, led by Abu Grabgo Azoka, continued to mount protestations against the NLC Decree 112. Kusasis refused to accept the authority as their legitimate ruler. In 1980, when the Third Republican Constitution was in force and the government of Dr. Hila Neman was reigning, Aturiba Azambego, the then Mamprusi chief of Bawku. This injunction was granted. The Kusasi, led by Abu Grabgo Azoka, petitioned the National House of Chiefs, requesting the House to set aside the NLC Decree 112 on the grounds that offended the Court of Appeal ruling in favor of Abugrago Azoka. In 1983, the House of Chiefs declined the invitation and held that it had no jurisdiction in place. Then the passage of the Third Republican Constitution and the establishment of the military government of Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings under the PNDC, the Kusasis continued to petition again, decided to review the case and came to a conclusion that in the case of Bawku and in the matter of the Kusasis, they believed that the National Liberation Council had committed an error. It was argued that the NLC's focus on chiefs was on chiefs removed by President Kwame Nkrumah. The situation of Bawku was different. The Mamprusi chief was removed by the Governor General upon the recommendation of basis. The PNDC law decided to restore the back to the status of chiefs in Bawku. In all the places where the NLC did to them, those that came into force on the basis of NLC Decree 112 were also removed and recognition withdrawn from them. I hereby reproduce PND's Law 75 herein. Whereas by virtue of Section 3(1) of the Chieftaincy Amendment Decree 1966, NLC Decree 112, the then government of the National Liberation Council withdrew recognition of the persons named in Part 1 of the schedule to this law as chiefs in the places specified respectively in relation to them. And whereas by virtue of Section 3, Clause 2 of the said decree, and the said persons were prohibited from purporting to exercise the functions of chiefs, and whereas by virtue of Section 4 of the said decree, the person named in Part 2 of the schedule to this law were accorded recognition as chiefs by the then government of the National Liberation Council and restored as chiefs of the places specified respectively in relation to them in place of the person named in Part 1 of the said schedule. And whereas the Provisional National Defense Council, having considered the circumstances of the withdrawal of recognition by the then government of the National Liberation Council of the person named in Part 1 of the schedule to this law to the original status chiefs of the places specified respectively in relation to them. Now, therefore, this law is hereby made, whose recognition as chiefs of the places specified respectively in relation to them in column 1 was withdrawn by virtue of Section 3 of the Chieftaincy Amendment Act 1966, NLC Decree 112, shall, at the commencement of this law, be deemed to have been restored to the original status as chiefs of their respective places. Any person specified in Part 1 of the schedule to this law who before the commencement of this law is performing the functions of a chief by virtue of Section 4 of the Chieftaincy Amendment Decree 1966, NLC Decree 112, in any place specified in column 2 of Part 1 of that treat such person as a chief. 3(1) Any person referred to in Section 2 of this law who has in his possession or custody any property belonging to the stool or skin of any of the places specified in column 2 of Part 1 of the schedule to this law shall, with the commencement of this law, surrender such property to the person in column 2 of that part. Any person referred to in Section 2 of this law who occupied any palace belonging to the stool or skin of any of the places specified in column 2 of Part 1 of the schedule to this law shall immediately on the commencement of this law, vacate such palace and surrender possession thereof to the person named in column 1 of part 1 of part. Any person who willfully obstructs the person authorized to take possession of any stool or skin property, refuses to vacate the palace, willfully obstructs the restoration of any stool or skin property, or contravenes any provision of this law, shall be guilty of an offense and liable on summary conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 3 years without the option of a fine. And then it listed the same names, so restoring the names as it is now again. So Abugra Azoka becomes Bokunaba again. And Alaji Adam Zambio then ceases, is prohibited from becoming, from being Bokunaba. The passage of PND's Law 75 led to bloody clashes between the Mampruses and the allies and the Kusasis and the allies. Other complementary measures were implemented by the PNDC to restore law and order. They included the Bawku Lands Vesting Law, PNDC Law 99, which vested all lands in the Bawku district and the PNDC free from all encumbrances, and the passage of the Prohibited Organization Bawku District Law 1984, PNDC Law 98, which proscribed tribal organizations in Bawku. Abugrago Azoka had died before the passage of PNDC Law 75. The Kuskasis then enskined his son as Asigri Abugrabo Azoka as the Bokunaba and the head chief of the Kusasi traditional area. The Constitution of Ghana, 1992, came into force with the Kusasis in place as the rulers of Bawku. Asigri Abugrago Azoka was Bokunaba, and by virtue of that, he enskinned all the divisional chiefs in the Kusasi traditional area. Article 270, Clause 1 of the Constitution provides that the institution of chieftaincy, together with its traditional councils, as established by customary law and usage, is hereby guaranteed. So the position of Asigri Abugra Azoka seemed to have been frozen in time by the 1992 Constitution, until one Alhaji Ibrahim Adam Zambio mounted a challenge in the present Supreme Court. This 2003 action instituted by the Mampruses before the Supreme Court, seeking to invoke his original jurisdiction, was discontinued without liberty to reapply under Article 270 and 277 of the 1992 Constitution and the Chieftaincy Restoration of Statutes of Chiefs Law 1983, PNDC Law 75, which had then been repealed by the Statute Law Revision Act 1996, Act 516 in 1996. On Tuesday, the 29th day of April 2003, the Supreme Court of Ghana provided what legal analysts believe to be finality to the question of the Bawku skin. The ruling was very short and yet profound. Report says, the application to discontinue is granted, but without liberty to apply PNDC law, liberty to apply under PNDC Law 75 and Article 270 and 277 of the 1992 Constitution. Cost of those days, 10 billion to the first defendant. Signed, G.K. Akwa, Justice of the Supreme Court, T.K. Aziz, Justice of the Supreme Court, S.A. Brook, S. Justice of the Supreme Court. Apparently, on the morning of the hearing of the matter, the plaintiffs instead sought leave to discontinue the case. The leave was granted, but the court directed that no one should come back to that court again pursuant to Articles 270 and 277 of the 1992 Constitution, the matter of the restoration of Abugrago Azoka and all other sub-chiefs under PNDC Law 75. Under the 1992 Constitution, the Supreme Court has final authority to make such pronouncements, and only that court can review its decisions under certain circumstances. I've gone to great length to review the history of various legal resolutions that has traveled a long, tortuous legal and political journey. In spite of the efforts of various courts and governments, the Mampruses did not give up their claims and the Kusasis did not relent in their efforts to assert their independence and identity as a self-ruling tribe. The Nairi kept insisting that the Supreme Court has not ruled on the issues implicated in the Bawku skin matter. Asigiri Abugarago Azoka insisted that the Supreme Court gave finality to the matter. This contestation led often to extreme violence, and many people have been gruesomely killed and maimed. Property that can't be easily calculated has been destroyed. Whole communities have relocated because all the buildings have been burned by various factions. The intensity of the violence did not deter either side. They dug in. Governments from PNDC to NDC-1 to MPP-1 to NDC-2 and MPP-2 have invested heavily in security and other measures with very limited success as the violence kept escalating. Within these developments, the Mamprusis in Bawku organized a funeral for the last deposed Mamprusi chief of Bawku, Na Tampuri Zambio, who had died in 1981, 40 years ago. The Kusasis in Bawku had objected to the performance of the funeral on the grounds that Na Tampuri Zambio had his chieftaincy recognition withdrawn by the passage of the Chieftaincy Restoration Status of Chiefs Law 1983, PNDC Law 75. Again, the Nairi of Mamprugu on 15 February 2023 at his palace in Nalarugu purported to enskin one Mr. Seydou Abagari as Bokunaba. This generated a violent reaction in Bawku and its environs. The government of President Nana Dankwa condemns developments in Nalarugu today, February 15, 2023. Concerning the purported enskinment of a new Bokunaba as illegal and a threat to national security. Government further reiterates that Naba Asugri Bugrabo Azoka is the Bokunaba, duly gazetted and a member of the National and Upper East Regional House of Chiefs. The security agencies have therefore been directed to arrest and prosecute any other person who holds himself out as Bokunaba. This statement was signed by Mr. Kojo Opon Nkrumah as Minister for Information. The government of Nana Addo Dankwa did not arrest Seydou Abagari. The government continued to reject as illegal what happened in Nalarugu and repeated same in another statement dated 28 October 2024 when Seydou Abagari returned to Bawku. The statement read in part, the return to Bawku on 24th October of Mr. Seydou Abagari, who was illegally enskinned as Bokunaba in February 2023, subsequent to the vacation by the Court of Appeal sitting in Kumasi of the warrant for his arrest, has led to significant disturbances affecting public peace and security in the area. The government did not in any form or manner confer legitimacy on Mr. Seydou Abagari. As I indicated from the beginning, I was requested by of January endorsed, and I should endorse that I should proceed with finding an amicable resolution to the current situation. The parties in this has accorded me enormous respect and personally led this delegation at all times to my palace whenever invited. My brother, the Nairi, has for very good reason, sent a delegation of his elders and sub-chiefs at all times that I have requested him to come. They all express confidence in the process and believe that we will be able to work towards an amicable outcome. I started my engagement with my brother, the Nairi, by appealing to him to magnanimously. The Nairi made some concessions but gave some conditions for my consideration, and the Mamprusis who are now occupying those lands are his children. He observed that as a result of colonial interference and the interference of Kusasis have asserted, the Kusasi claim has caused significant bloodshed between them and his Mamprusi children, and this has spread across the area and now poses a major national and international security threat. The Nairi detested that development and finds it most unfortunate that such bloodshed should occur among his children. He therefore sought an amicable compromise to end the feud and restore lasting peace. He said in part, "Be that as it may, in the interest of coexistence, peace, and human dignity, my proposed solution in concessions is premised on the request from your Royal Majesty that I cede part of my jurisdiction in the Bawku traditional area to the Kusasi tribe, with the hope that a lasting and enduring peaceful resolution of the Bawku conflict will be achieved for all parties." The Nairi has been clear in his mind that his decision to make concessions has been a difficult one, but added that, nonetheless, guided by ancestral wisdom, commitment to peace, and respect for your Majesty's tireless efforts, I have chosen the path of conciliation, not out of weakness, but traditional area. I had been inspired by the desire and commitment of my brother, the Nairi, to bring a peaceful end to the conflict in Bawku and its environs, and to define the best arrangements to accommodate all the different tribes and communities in the area. The Nairi outlined a set of proposals which form the basis of engagement that I have had with both sides, with the hope of finding a common ground. If a common ground emerged, it would enable them to reach an amicable resolution. With this historical understanding, I have impressed upon the Bokunaba, Sigria Bugrabu Azoga to acknowledge that at one time or another, the Nairi exercised traditional authority over the area that now constitute the Bawku traditional area. Concede that colonized Kusal Traditional Council. Records have in the various sub-chiefs in the Bawku until PNDC Law 75 was passed in 1919. As well impressed upon my brother, the Nairi, that current realities make it more pragmatic that we accept Kusasi rule over the area. With the past Supreme Court in Alhaji Ibrahim Adam Zambego versus Aninchema Abugrago and Attorney General, it will be untenable for anyone to hold that Sigru Abugrabo Azoka is not the Bokunaba and exercises jurisdiction over the entire Kusasi area. The Supreme Court shuts its doors to anyone seeking to have the matter revisited. It is important to note that PNDC Law 75 was repealed alongside several laws and enactments by the Statute Law Revision Act 1996, Act 516. The long title of the Statute Law Revision Act 1996, Act 516, which repealed the chieftains and enactments as indicated above, provides as follows: an act to repeal certain statutes that are no longer applicable or have become spent. It therefore appears that the Chieftaincy Restoration Statutes of Chiefs Law 1983 PNDC Law 75, just like the other laws and enactments that were repealed by Act 316, were repealed because they had performed the purpose for which they were enacted and thus had become spent. Its repeal, therefore, did not the repeal of PNDC Law 75 by Act 516 was to be maintained. Response to the Nairobi's terms of concessions presented by him to me. Essentially, he asked for a number of towns in the Kusasi area to be transferred to him to Enskin. The impression created was that those towns would prefer to be under the Nairi essentially. The request was to have some of the towns brought under the jurisdiction of the Nairi. I decided to engage the chiefs of those towns. After meeting the various chiefs of the towns and communities affected by the withdrawal of recognition following the implementation of the Governor General's White Paper in 1957, on the recommendations of the Afari Committee, the withdrawal of the recognition occasioned by the NLC Decree 112 and PNDC Law 75, I have come to the conclusion that there has been significant settlement of the Nairi as one of the towns that the Mamprusi wanted to be given to the Nairi. Unfortunately, the law as it stands now makes Asigri Aburagu Asoka the lawful chief of Bawku, and so it is impossible legally to do any such thing in this mediation exercise. On the question of Bawku town, I have taken the position that the established tradition since 1931, thereabout, is that the person who is Bawku Naba has the entire Kusasi area. By law, and the declarations of the Supreme Court of Ghana, Asugri Abugrago Azoka is the Bawku Naba, and there cannot be any rival residing in Bawku claiming otherwise. I have impressed upon my brother, the Nairi, to accept that recognition by law in appreciation of the enduring national and international security interests that my brother himself is so concerned about. I have been candid with my brother, the Nairi, that the purported enskinment of the Nairi has come to terms with the difficulties that will pose to achieving lasting peace, which he desires. I have, from the inception, restrained both governments from effecting the arrest of Mr. Seydou Abagare, out of respect for my brother, the Nairi. The final resolution of the Bawku matters requires that Mr. Seydou Abagare be recalled to Nalerigu by the Nairi to be reassigned to play another traditional role at the palace of the Nairi, assisted by the state. Alternatively, he may choose to stay in Bawku as an ordinary citizen of the community, but not to pose as Bawku Naba. The final recommendations, Mr. President, I recommend that my brother, the Nairi, accepts the laws as presently constituting Asigri Abugrabu Azoka as the chief of Bawku and head chief of the Kusasi traditional area. We chiefs, no matter how exalted, do not live above the Constitution of Ghana. And the laws due to Asigri Abugrabu Azoka must be enforced by the government of the Republic of Ghana until change in accordance with the 1992 Constitution of Abugra Azoka. This is critical to the restoration and maintenance of peace in Kusasi traditional area. I wish to thank you, Mr. President, and your predecessor for reposing such confidence in me and asking me. I also want to thank the Nairi and the Bawku Naba for the efforts relative to this mediation process. The various chiefs or heads of various communities whom I met in the area who also participated in this endeavor deserve positive commendation. I have come to the conclusion and by the Constitution enacted in 19 for about 40 years. It's a nice process, and which, as already indicated, appears, if any, a review of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana, stated herein. If the pronouncement of the Supreme Court appears not clear enough, remedy may be sought if available. Is Mr. President. Meet them again. We set up a mediation process where we would reconciliation and everything. The way things have happened, where the Peace Council, and then we nominate some lawyers from their side, from each side, and other. So we form a committee to go through that. Then I think we can find a way to get them to 500, going not by the government, by the National Peace Council, myself and some people. We can do that also. That I read that because I didn't want it to come from you, for them to charge you that you've changed the report. So.
Please be seated, please. Shall we please give His Royal Majesty another big round of applause?
I want to clarify. My brother in what pronouncements he made publicly. It is not right. It's a dicey situation. We are all trying to make amends and get people to move together as brothers and sisters. It looks like he's making various pronouncements and all that, which wouldn't endure to the peace that we want. So please, I wanted to, if he was here, I was going to tell him, but the message will get to you. I'll invite him and tell him that we've gotten to a state where we all have to find peace. Then Bokunaba is the Bokunaba. The law is on his side. We agree to that. But you don't make pronouncements on radio and everywhere that will incense the other side. Where we have reached is more like reconciliation. The Nairi accepts. We have to get them all together. At a point that looking from the Kusasi side, talking to the Mamprusi mother, were we not drinking pito together? And my son Mahama Yaga here, father and mother Kusasi and Mamprusi, isn't it? So how can they fight? So please, Mr. President, I'm sorry. I just wanted to explain.
Wisdom and commitment to peace. Thank you. Your Excellency, Nananom, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we shall now hear brief comments from key stakeholders. Without much ado, may I now invite Ojiahoho Yao JB President of the National House of Chiefs, to
the President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Royal Majesty, Otumfuo, Tutu, Asante. In the country, the National House of Chiefs, the regional houses of chiefs, I declare and all to express my gratitude for asking His Royal Majesty to mediate in this matter, which has brought us to this point so far. Let me also express the gratitude of the Nanum to His Royal Majesty for what we have heard this afternoon. I am indeed ready to the hearing of everybody here. And by the time what is left is for you, myself, everybody here to go back and speak to all the Bawku citizens. We need peace, and so let us speak to them. I remember 3 days before Otumfuo met the Kusasis and the Zongo community and some of my chiefs in BBN to my house, and I spoke to them that Otumfuo will very soon present his reports. So what do we do? Indeed, I was excited that all the contributors pleaded for peace to exist in Bawku. On this note, I am also urging everybody here, especially my revered chiefs, let us go back and then speak to the people of Bawku. If this is done, I believe that there will be peace in Bawku, and similarly, other areas where my minister chieftaincy, right? But I'm also going to resource the chieftaincy institution. It's an independent body. If it is an independent body, just like the judiciary and other, then it might be well resourced. In situations where contestants come to the house and we have to demand money from them before members of the Judicial Committee can sit. The last time I met His Excellency, he also charged me to speak to my minister and present a paper. On this, I'm happy you said it was not an arbitration, it was a mediation. And we all will support you to bring this matter to finality. Thank you. God bless you all.
thank you very much, Nana Ojiahoho Yaojebi, President of the National House of Chiefs, for those comments. Next, we'll hear from representative of the religious leaders, Maulvi Muhammad bin Salah, to speak. Sally, sorry, thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Royal Majesty, Otumfuo, other traditional rulers here, ministers of state, distinguished personalities, ladies and gentlemen, I extend to all of you the Islamic felicitation. I stand here humbly for and on behalf of all the religious leaders of this great country, Ghana. I stand here as a fulfilled religious and genius religious leaders of this country. Happy Almighty God extol his beauties for the blessings that he has showered upon each and every one of us here. We thank him for the journey that we've undertaken and for where we've successfully arrived at today. We thank His Excellency as well as his predecessor for all the effort that they genuinely made towards ensuring that we have lasting peace in Bawku. For that, we hold so high in our community. It's an institution of wisdom, and he has demonstrated to all of us in Ghana and beyond that he deserves the accolade of the King Solomon of our era. On behalf of all my brethren, we want to thank all the mediators, all the members of Otumfuo's mediation team, all the members from the Mampusi side, all the brethren from the Kusasi side, and indeed all Ghanaians, and hope and pray sincerely that we will all pledge that from now onwards, we should never, ever undertake this kind of a journey in this country. Let us use today to be a call to all of us to respect peace, to honor peace, and to know that without peace, we cannot worship our Creator without the needed peace. On this note, I want to thank everybody, our President, Otumfuo, all those who made this day possible, and all those who saw us through to this very successful end. May the good Lord richly
Thank you very much. Last in this series, we'll hear from, so shall we please receive him with an applause?
Your Royal Highness Otumfuo Setutu II, allow me to stand on the protocol already established. Royal Highness Otumfuo Setutu II, and the whole mediation team that he led, women and youth who participated in this process. That we celebrate today in the mediation process. Process does not erase the past, but it gives us hope. Hope to continue to lean on. A chance to stop the cycle, to protect our youth, and to allow Bawku to breathe again. Peace in Bawku will require that reaches the ordinary person. Above all, it will require restraint, especially in moments of provocation. We respectfully appeal for continued upheld and protected, but honestly. The future will not be built on revenge or anger. It will be built by small daily choices and by choosing patience over violence. And dialogue. Your Excellency, thank you for not giving up on Bawku. To peace when it matters most. The National Peace Council assures the implementation of the rule slowly return to may our nights go.
Thank you very much, Most Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Kofifiano. Shall we please give him another round of applause? Shall we please acknowledge him? Thank you very much. We also wish to acknowledge all our senior government officials here present. It is now my singular honor to invite His Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, to deliver his remarks on this special occasion.
Thank you. Kindly resume your seats. Thank you very much. Let me express my sincerest gratitude to Otumfuo Osei II for his patience and diligence in working over all these months to mediate this seemingly intractable conflict between two important ethnic groups in our society. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in the security briefing he gave me, he mentioned that he had invited Otumfuo to be the sole mediator in the conflict that was raging in Bawku at the time. And so shortly after I took over, I paid Otumfuo a visit to confirm, the status of mediation and whether he actually had accepted to mediate. And he confirmed that he had. And so even though the mediation has been long, and I can understand the complexity of the Bawku case, and so it needed time and patience to be able to thoroughly engage all the parties and be able to flesh out the facts and finally come out with a recommendation. Today, I'm pleased that we have come to the end of that journey. I've said it was a mediation, and the next leg of the journey is to reconcile our two brothers and sisters from the Kusasi and the Mamprusi side. This conflict is not winnable militarily. No side can vanquish them. It is in the extreme northeast corner of the country. And we all know what is happening just across the border from Bawku. In all the national security reports that I receive, there is urgency put on settling and bringing operating in our northern neighbor, Burkina Faso. And so the end of this mediation gives us the opportunity to see what the way forward is. In terms of to be one of the most vibrant, and a lot of people in Bawku have prospered, whether they are Mamprusis or they are Kusasis. Unfortunately, this conflict, civil servants are leaving. We're doing national service postings, and we have suspended posting national servicemen and women to Bawku because we cannot guarantee their safety. And so I'm pleased that government would look at this report, and within the next 24 hours, government will issue a statement on the report. But it's my hope that the National Peace Council, the House of Chiefs, and Otumfuo himself and all the religious bodies would go the next step of continuing the engagement between the two groups. On behalf of the Vice President, Nana Pokwa Jima, on behalf of senior government officials, very honorable job he has done for God and country. He has shown that he does. And so, Nana, you took the decision to be live. Whole nation. I thank you all very much.
Your Excellency, I've just been told that we have the UNDP rep here who... Yes, shall we please acknowledge? We're just about coming to the end of this all-important program. But as we started seeking the favor of God for a smooth running of this program, may I humbly invite Apostle Eric Nyamiche, Chairman, Pentecostal Council of Ghana, to kindly give us the closing prayer. Shall we walk?